So hey y'all, I'm back with another video. So tonight's video is yet again another Chioma Chats video on camera edition. Y'all already know what to do. Let's go ahead and cue that theme song. Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Say Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Say Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Say Chioma Chats. Chioma Chats. Say grab a snack and bring it back. Yay, Chioma Chats. It's Chioma Chats. Say get it. Go girl. Go. And it's Chioma Chats. Okay, y'all. Okay, so today we have something just a little different in preparation for season 2 of Netflix's docu-series called America's Sweethearts, Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. Y'all can already see I'm wearing the t-shirt. I got their t-shirt. I wanted to do a deep dive on their brand, on their show on the first season, and more. So America's Sweethearts had their first season last year in 2024 on Netflix, and this is basically the new rendition of the DCC show. So if y'all didn't know, I love the DCC. I think I've said it on this channel, and yes, I'm an Eagles fan, okay? But I love the DCC. I grew up watching them because I did cheer, I did dance, and I always watched their show that aired on CMT for 16 seasons between 2006 and 2021. So I've watched all 16 seasons more than 5 times each, maybe more, okay? And in 2020, during the pandemic, I was going through a very, very tough depression, and I found the show again. And I don't know if this was God, but you know, I had watched the show as a kid, and I remember I was like pretty bedridden during that time for like a month or two, and I turned on my Amazon Prime to find something to watch. I was like, well, I might as well watch something, and it recommended DCC Making the Team, which was their original show that followed just a group of hopefuls, a group of young women each year looking to make their squad of 36 members. And I remember I clicked on it to watch, and I was like, oh yeah, like I remember watching this as a high schooler, as a middle schooler, and I would definitely binge it as a kid whenever I could catch it. And in that moment, in my deepest sadness ever, I decided to watch the most recent season at that time, which was of the 2019 team. And I just kind of fell in love with the brand, but also what they stand for. The show literally helped me with my depression. I don't know if it's because all the girls are always smiling and crying, and I just was along with the ride with them. And this was when I was fresh out of college. It was 2020. I had just graduated college, and I was very sick, you know, and it was COVID and all of that. And to see these women who most were my age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, just chasing their dream to be on this elite team and getting to know their background stories and just seeing the process of what it really takes to be a DCC, I was so impressed. Y'all know I started my modeling agency called the Queen Team Models, or QTM. Y'all know this. I started it around that time, and I will say I have been heavily inspired by the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders and their leaders and their coaches, and just how important their role is to the Cowboys brand. Again, an Eagles fan, but I love the DCC, and basically what the ladies represent in the history of women. Because if you look deeply, they do represent a lot of things for women in history of pop culture and in sports. So now they have their Netflix show. So they went from cable TV on CMT to a streaming network, which is Netflix, and it has brought them so much more recognition from viewers all over the world who did not know about the DCC. So again, I did cheer and dance, so I grew up watching their show, and basically it reconciled my love for cheer and dance and performance when I had stumbled across the show again 5 years ago. And so their brand basically lit a catalyst under my butt to be more intentional with my brand, my modeling agency, and how it's represented through sisterhood, through beauty, femininity, sex appeal, service, community involvement, and just creating a space for women, right? Because that's all I want to do. I even recently went to Dallas in May to see them on tour. That's how much I love them. And I love their show on tour. I actually was going to suggest that they do a tour. I meant to do this video back in November, y'all. I meant to suggest, I wrote it down, like maybe they should go on tour. Like, have they ever thought about that? And then lo and behold, they go on tour. I promise you this video has been in my archives to do last year. But if they ever decide to travel across America, which I do think that they should, because this second season of their Netflix show to me is going to be very monumental to their brand. So, you know, I just want to see them again. If they do decide to come to Atlanta, I'll be here. And their show on tour showcases more of the dancers' individual talents and different styles of dance. but even more so, you just get to see them in person. Like, you get to see what the cameras on the TV show don't show you. On screen, they're obviously beautiful, they're impressive, but in person, it's like sensational, okay? And I was blown away by the show, and it was definitely worth the money to fly all the way to Dallas from Atlanta and watch them. These ladies are professional, they're pretty, they give back, they're very personable, and they are the traditional view of what society says a woman should be. And I label the DCC brand as like talented Miss Americas that have formed a sisterhood based on performance, on tradition, on beauty, intellect, and obviously dancing as well. So when I started my business, I kept all of that in mind, and I still do. And I'm actually relaunching my modeling company in Atlanta. So if there are any of you that are watching that are interested in joining QTM ATL, please DM me on Instagram at Queen Team Models. You have to be in Atlanta though, okay? So you have to be in Metro Atlanta. No, I can't work with you if you live all the way in somewhere in Washington State. I just can't do it, okay? I don't have those resources yet, but maybe one day, pray for me. But I will be selecting some women to start a new version of my business now that I've moved to Atlanta. However, for today's video, I know this is definitely different from my channel. I usually talk about Black women, but I feel like just talking about women in general, this is really, really good, right? It may be a longer video, but I'm going to basically be diving deep into the Netflix docu-series America's Sweethearts, the season 1. I know season 2 might be dropping today. I don't know when I'm going to post this, but season 2 will come out. I'll try to circle back around and just basically talking all about the legendary Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. I will definitely do a recap of season 2 if y'all want me to. Y'all just definitely have to tell me. If you grew up watching American football, or if you've ever caught like a halftime show, you know that the DCC are basically America's glamorized football cheerleading squad. Like, that's what they are. They are pretty much known for their sequins. They're known for their high kicks. They're known for their iconic jump split, which is very impressive. Don't try that at home, okay? But after watching their show on CNT and Netflix, I do see beyond the glitz and the glam. There's a lot going on under the surface. And I think there's definitely issues around race, around body image, about pay, and the pressure that these women face to just keep up an almost impossible standard. So now that the DCC are all the rave, at least to a bigger public spectacle, because I've always loved the DCC, I've been following them for years, I did want to talk about the DCC as someone who's not just a former cheerleader and a former dancer, but also a longtime fan of the brand and is also in the entertainment and social media industry, where as a woman, there is so much to a brand like this, and I want to discuss all of that. So I've broken this video down into 5 main talking points on what this docu-series gets right, where it falls short, and why the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders remain such a complicated but celebrated cultural symbol in American pop culture. So y'all grab y'all tea, grab y'all snacks, whatever it may be, and without further ado, let's get right into this video. So starting off with point number 1, let's talk about the history, the glam, the grit, how we got here. So the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders started back in the late 1960s, but really hit their cultural peak in the 70s and the 80s. And they became part of this iconic part of American football culture. The ultimate cheerleading squad that combined athleticism with sex appeal. This was all new back then. And they packaged it in sparkly uniforms and basically perfect smiles. It's said that what made them go viral was the wink, right? Which was a cheerleader in the 70s named Gwenda Swearigan, who was shaking her pom-poms, okay? She was shaking her pom-poms, she was doing her thing, she was shaking her hair, and she winked into the camera. And if you actually watch the clip, which I'll play, it basically threw the announcers off.
5:03 left in the third quarter. A seesaw game. Lots of mistakes. I think she was doing that for you, Frank. I don't know. She was very effective. Did you like that, Frank? I did like that. Little wink.
After she did this, they basically went viral for the 1970s, okay? So then they started being more recognized for their uniform, as well as their community appearances, and their 1977 poster that was one of the best-selling posters that year. It literally sold over 1 million copies. So think of that as like 1 million likes on Instagram right now. So they have their 70s version of going viral, and they marketed themselves off of that image. Now, their first director, named Suzanne Mitchell, who served as a director from 1976 to 1989, was given the task to manage the cheerleaders and is really the home base of their initial success in the 70s and the 80s. Through the DCC, we've gotten some celebrities or people who you may recognize who have gone on to do other things outside of DCC. So think about Jill Jones, the actress that played Tony in the show Girlfriends. She was a DCC, which I didn't know until a few years ago.
Hello, my name is Jill Jones. This is my very first year.
Also, Abigail Klein, she's an actress and she played on the show Days of Our Lives. And then also Melissa Rycroft Strickland, who was the winner of Dancing with the Stars. And of course, there are many others. So in terms of how the DCC has led to their modern day branding, that is all due to the heralded Miss Kelli Finglass, who was a DCC from 1984 to 1989 and was the first and I think the only DCC to ever be invited to skip auditioning during her 5th and final year in 1989. Kelli was at first the assistant director, and then during the Cowboys' change of ownership in the early 1990s, Kelli was then hired as the senior director in 1991, and she's basically been the director and the powerhouse behind the brand ever since. Now, Kelli Finglass to me is honestly the epitome of a woman boss, a mogul, and the reason why the DCC is what they are today. Looking at the show and beyond, Kelli is the driving force behind their transformation into this globally recognized brand. I mean, she literally brought her background of dance and performance and leadership and marketing, I believe she has a degree in marketing, into her role. And honestly, her influence has elevated the DCC from like a sideline performance group to like a multifaceted entertainment and business powerhouse. So under her leadership, the cheerleaders became financially self-sufficient through their own merchandising. They also had their own sponsorships and still do. And they have events. Of course, I went to the tour, including the wildly successful annual swimsuit calendar. I haven't gotten one of those, but I did buy one of their regular calendars. She also introduced more technically demanding choreography, and she raised the performance standards, which basically ensured that the DCC maintained their reputation as the NFL's premier cheer team. Kelli also spearheaded the creation of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, making the team hit reality TV show, and that basically broadened the group's like cultural impact. Like that's how I got introduced to them, because I feel like if you're not from Texas, you maybe only have heard of them if you're from that area, but I got introduced to them via their reality show. And Kelli's persistence also led her to the creation of the DCC Barbie and the induction of the iconic DCC uniform into the Smithsonian Museum in 2018. That's a lot, right? So her legacy is not only rooted in just performance and maybe pageantry, if you will, but also business innovation and cultural representation, and also community outreach, which I think are all great pillars. She has basically branded this team, and her work has helped expand the role of women in professional sports and also the public perception of cheerleading, if you ask me, at least NFL cheerleading. Kelli pretty much remains committed to growing the DCC's global presence and setting the standard for professional cheerleading worldwide. And I think what's important to recognize is how much the DCC brand has always been about selling a very specific image of femininity. Physically, it's been tall, slim, mostly white with that all-American look, you know, long legs, blonde hair, and flawless makeup. Even when you look at like Bring It On movies, this is like the cheerleader archetype that has become America's sweetheart. So the docu-series touches on this history, but I want to stress how much this idea excluded so many women when you think about it, especially women of color, and doing that for decades if you think about it. And I think Kelli and the DCC organization has made a lot of great effort in the last let's say a decade to definitely diversify their team and be more inclusive. But for a while, it was a very exclusive club. And that exclusivity shaped not just cheerleading, but also the way the public imagined female athletes and performers. We hear some of the past and present cheerleaders talk about, you know, sisterhood and all of the opportunities that the squad has given them. And yes, that community and platform is real. I love that. You know, I believe it. I can see it. I can hear it from what the girls were talking about. But that history is also tied up in a commercialized, hyper feminine, and highly sexualized ideal that's been hard for many other women to fit into. So this history and branding isn't just nostalgic, but to me, it also sets the stage for a lot of the challenges that these women face today. So moving on to point number 2, let's get into body image and sexualization, because y'all, this is definitely a huge part of the docu-series and something that we see, and it's where things get a little bit complicated, right? So from the moment these women step on the squad, they're under intense scrutiny. You can tell. I mean, this is a business. This is the best of the best. And I think the show highlights everything from strict diet rules to uniform fittings that are so precise, they almost feel like a form of control.
And you look at Braylon, she looks heavy. She looks like she's gotten out of shape a little bit. Oh, really? I can't imagine why a girl comes into this tryout not in the best possible shape that they can be in. Her legs are beautiful. She carried her weight in section.
It's very nerve-wracking knowing that they're talking about you, because I mean, they get to zoom in on your face, they get to zoom in on your body. I'm not sure if today's helping or not with Victoria. In one sense, she is not at her trimmest state.
I remember in one scene, they measured a girl's like belly button length, and they were like, the average length of the belly button to like the waistline of the shorts is like 2.5 inches. And I was like, wow, okay. That's something new I never learned. But I love the uniform scenes though, because I do think that there is a sense of confidence that gets boosted when you put on something that is so iconic or just very recognized and there's history behind it. Like, for instance, I know that some HBCU dance lines have classic uniforms that have been worn during, you know, historic times for that dance program or for that school. And I follow HBCU dance. And the DCC uniform is the most recognizable uniform in NFL football and really sports altogether when it comes to cheerleading teams. But I'm not gonna lie, as someone who's been watching this show since I was literally a little girl, and I picked it back up when I was in my early 20s a few years ago, I watched this show, and even little old me, who hasn't really ever had like body image issues until maybe like my second puberty hit, it can definitely make you self-conscious looking at these beautiful women. I'll be very honest. I'm like, ooh, I gotta lose a few pounds. Their bodies are fit, they have abs, they have chiseled backs, and you know, I want that. I'm working towards it. Also, they look great in these uniforms while performing for a mostly male audience. And let's wake this up. And while I'm all for women owning their sex appeal and having control over it, like, I am so for that, right? I can still accept that there is a risk. In season 1, a 20-year-old cheerleader named Sophie was basically essayed at a game. And this was actually a scene that I kind of started crying about because I'm just like, ugh, I don't like this stuff, right? So she claims that she was grabbed on her butt by a cameraman, and she instantly reported this and called him out, which honestly, Sophie, if you're watching, I do commend her for this, because I don't think a lot of women think to report this behavior initially out of fear of embarrassment or fear of harassment or even more. So this scene was very, very hard to watch because she's, one, the youngest girl on the team. I mean, 20 years old. 2, she's obviously affected by this mentally and physically, right? And 3, at the end of the day, there was no results. So they did kick him out of AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play, but they then claim that they don't have enough evidence to convict him. But I'm sitting there like, this is the NFL, especially the Cowboys, and the Cowboys probably have the most visible programming in the US in terms of sports. So there are hundreds of cameras in that stadium. Someone had to have some type of evidence, if you ask me. And I think that raised awareness for not only me as a viewer, but me as someone who's been through the same thing. And also people just watching to see that even the most pretty, right? The most pristine, the most protected group of women or cheerleaders in the NFL, these women still face these things. For a man to touch you on your butt because he feels either entitled to your presence, or I don't know, because I can never really like wrap my head around why some men do this, right? But all of that just raises a critical question. And that is, are these women truly empowered by embracing their sexuality or just their sex appeal and performing in these very revealing, iconic uniforms? Or are they being exploited, their bodies objectified, all in the guise of empowerment and entertainment? My personal opinion to that question is, I think no matter what a woman wears, she should never, ever be assaulted or touched. But I do have to be honest and say that yes, their uniform does sexualize them because it is a sexy outfit. Like, we'll be real, right? And they know that. And I still think they're empowered while wearing it, but I see why it's also risky. And you know, you can get sexualized even if you're wearing a floor-length skirt and a turtleneck, right? But you know, I was just really considering that they are in these very, very, very small uniforms. I believe they said it has like less than 3 yards of fabric. And there was even a scene where the head of security said that they bring footballs, like actual real footballs, to appearances that the cheerleaders are at so that fans, particularly men, hold on to the footballs so they're not tempted to touch the cheerleaders. And that was actually a good business point for me. I was just like, okay. I'm gonna think about that. Because a lot of times when I'm doing stuff with the Queen Team models, like people do ask us for pictures and we do get a lot of googly-eyed men, okay? So yeah, I was like, okay, this is actually kind of smart. Also, one of the alumni cheerleaders named Tina Kalina, she did say that she felt more protected as a DCC than ever before in her life. And I do think Kelli and the organization strives to protect them because they are definitely vulnerable. I mean, I think in Dallas, Texas, they're even seen as like celebrities to a certain degree. If you're from Dallas, let me know. So Kelli did admit in the show that she does worry about the girls' safety all the time. And I think as a director, you definitely should. And a side note, for me personally, when it came to my business and I was thinking about, okay, you're branding women, okay, ages 20 to 35 are in my group. We've done bikini car washes where we're not just in bikinis, but we wear shorts with a bikini top. And we've done pool parties and we've done other things. I always hire security. Because again, people are weird, okay? So I get that as a director, you have to think about the safety of the people that you employ. So I think between their image, through their uniform, and obviously their very fit bodies, and their also sexy style of dance mixed with the type of audience that is that male-dominated aspect of the NFL, that's definitely a complex dynamic when you think about it. Like on one hand, they're empowered performers and brand ambassadors, but then on the other hand, they're definitely navigating a space where they're constantly sexualized and also placed into situations that can easily become unsafe. It even highlights how even with the best intentions and protective measures that are in place for them, the environment that they perform in is still presenting very real risk, right? And it's definitely tied to gender, to power, and perception. So the documentary lets us hear from cheerleaders who feel the confidence they build is definitely life-changing, who say that the job just gave them this strength and this self-love. And that's real, I see that. But at the same time, you do see the moments where those same women definitely struggle with the pressure to maintain a very specific image and body image at that. And it comes with risk day after day, season after season. And let's be real, the DCC brand literally depends on the cheerleaders looking a certain way, right? We recognize them, we could say, oh, she has the DCC look. They are judged by their bodies constantly, even at auditions. And that kind of pressure can take a toll on all of them. Honestly, these girls are my peers, so I see myself in them, so I can only be honest about the reality that they may be facing. And I am glad that the documentary did dive deeper on the reality of their jobs. I think the sexualization baked into the job is definitely undeniable. Like, it's there when you see it. And that's okay if it's a choice that they're making freely and safely, which I think they all do and they all understand. But it's also worthwhile pointing out that they may be in a system that puts these women in positions where protection or support is sometimes not enough. So moving on to my next point, I want to talk a lot about race and diversity because I do see that they have had a lot of progress, but we definitely have to talk about it. So as I was watching as a Black girl, I was instantly rooting for all the Black girls, okay? And a few years ago, the DCC had the highest amount of Black girls on their squad in their history. I believe they had like 9 or 10, so that's almost like a third of the team. And they even did a special conversation speaking about their experiences as Black women and Black dancers. If I can find it, I'll definitely link it below. But diversity is definitely a conversation when it comes to the DCC. And I guess the DCC look as well. I think Kelli Finglass understands the need for a diverse group of women, especially for a team that has been coined America's Sweethearts, right? Who cheer for America's team. And I know we say that cliche statement that America is a melting pot, but honestly, it really is if you live here. And so I think if a team is going to be called America's Sweetheart, you have to have a range of Black women, white women, Latinas, Asian, biracial, multiracial, and so forth. And I want to see it. The docu-series did try to tackle this a little bit, and to its credit, it shows that the squad has started to definitely diversify. I don't think it started, I think it has been starting. You see women of color making the team and also sharing their experiences, but here's also the thing. Historically, the DCC was like overwhelmingly white, okay? For a long time, women of color were either excluded or they were tokenized. And I will definitely be real. I think typecasting happens in every single realm of entertainment. I'll be honest. I do have a certain look for my business, but I also realize that in order for it to work and in order for it to appeal to different types of women, different types of men, different types of clients, different types of children, I have to have short girls, tall girls, light-skinned girls, dark-skinned girls, biracial, and women with different cultural backgrounds as well. And that is essentially typecasting, and that's what happens in entertainment. It really does. If you're in the entertainment industry, you know this. In Hollywood, in theater, in dance, in modeling, in pageants, it happens. But I will say it was kind of jarring to see that the ladies were given a choice of 3 DCC Barbies to choose from when being awarded for their solos. So after the ladies make it past auditions, they get invited into training camp, which during the Making the Team show days, that lasted about 10 to 12 weeks, I think. So basically all summer long. But I think in recent times after the show, it seems shorter and faster. Maybe because there's no TV aspect, maybe because COVID came and went, but there's always a first meeting, okay? That leads into that training camp. And during that first meeting, they are celebrated with DCC Barbies if they had like an exceptional solo. I want a DCC Barbie. And they had a black Barbie, a white blonde Barbie, and a white or maybe Latina brunette Barbie to choose from. Like that was it. That's it, okay? Not even a redheaded white girl Barbie. No curly hair Barbies, nothing. Those were the only 3. Now I'll say this, the DCC Barbies were launched back in December 2007 and they were limited edition. I don't think they've been in retail in over a decade. You can find some used ones for sale on eBay going for hundreds of dollars. And let me tell you something, I was gonna buy one for like $80 years ago before the whole Netflix thing started. I went back to look at it again last summer. The Barbies were going for $300-400. So yeah, there's that. But essentially they are collector's items. But as of right now, I think the Barbies that they give out are probably maybe leftover bulk, you know, from the Barbie collection that they launched back then. So for 2007, yes, it was probably limited with the look and the lack of diversity because that's what reflected. Now, Kelli, if you're listening, the marketing major in me says that Mattel and DCC, y'all need to relaunch, okay? When I was at the tour, there were so many little girls. They even had a junior DCC performance and they were so cute, okay? They were so cute. They were so talented. I was actually blown away. I was like, oh wow, these girls are good. But even more so, there was like a mini or a junior DCC uniform that they were selling at the tour, meaning that there is apparel that their brand has given to younger girls or even women like me who just like their brand. Hell, I even got a t-shirt while I was there and want to collect a doll for showcasing purposes. I would definitely get a doll. Their show was #1 on Netflix in several countries for a while, and this second season is going to do the same, if not more, okay? They need to relaunch the Barbies, but this time, let's be more diverse. We live in a different era than 2007, you know, and that's not only reflected by the diversity on their team, but just America in general. And I get that Texas is pretty conservative, white, Christian, blonde, you know, but there's been a lot more diversity over the years, especially since 2007. So for that reason, they should launch about 10 different dolls. Let me give y'all some tips. So you definitely keep your white blonde Barbie. You have your brunette Barbie that's white. You also have a redheaded white Barbie, a light skin and dark skin Latina, an Asian Barbie. You do a brown skin and a dark skin black Barbie, and then 2 additional dolls, a black doll with curly hair or afro hair, and then a white biracial, multiracial or Latina doll with curly hair as well. I think the brand can really financially capitalize off of relaunching those Barbies because they're basically relevant, okay? They're relevant to little girls. Little girls love dolls and the DCC, and essentially they can tackle this diversity issue in a new era of the world. So Kelli, if you're listening, I have a degree in communications and marketing, okay? Let me shameless plug myself, but I can brand this whole thing out for y'all. So anyway, while there's some progress, I think the show reveals how women of color still have to work twice as hard to basically fit in and feel accepted there. And I listened to the America Girls podcast by Sarah Hepola, well done, 10 out of 10. And there were interviews where Black cheerleaders from the 90s and the 2000s basically talked about feeling othered or feeling like they constantly needed to prove themselves more than their white teammates. If you guys haven't checked it out, highly recommend if you want the tea, the scandal, and just like how the DCC was back in like their heyday or whatever. So definitely listen to it. It's an 8-part podcast. I will definitely link that below too. So all of this is definitely a reflection of a much larger issue on how institutions with long histories of exclusion slowly try to change, but can't quite like shake the old biases and cultures overnight. I still do think that the team is predominantly white and blonde, right? And to me, it's not necessarily a problem per se, because they do have the right to brand their image and what appeals to their audience, the same way I have the right to brand my models as urban or Black or women of color. And these things usually reflect the surroundings, but I still think it's very clear that some of those traditional preferences and who they select for the team definitely still linger, even with who they featured in season 1. I was looking around and I wanted to see the background stories of more of the Black girls on the team, because I'm a Black girl, right? And I relate to them more, especially as a cheerleader who has been on a predominantly white squad. Like, I was there from 6th grade through 12th grade. So I wanted to hear about the experience. And I do see that for season 2, it looks like there is more of a focus on the women of color, which, you know, thank y'all for listening to us. We want to see it. I see Jada, who is a biracial woman and also long and tall like me. I think she's like 6 foot and I'm 6 foot. So, you know, and I see Armani, who is a Black girl who deals with alopecia, and she's also looking to be an attorney. So I think her story will be powerful. And I also see Shandi, who is biracial as well, who I think she's the same age as me, and she's also a long tenured veteran who made the team when I first started watching the show back in 2019. So I've definitely followed her for a while. And I do think they've definitely made strides towards being more inclusive and showing a broader range of beauty, which we love to see. I like to see all beauty, even if it's not just Black beauty. Of course, I prefer and want to promote Black beauty, but I like to see all beauty. But I still think there is a noticeable like lean towards a certain look, which is mostly white, often blonde, right? And that reflects the team's legacy, and also it does reflect the team's branding. It doesn't take away from the talent of all of the women who get selected, but it does kind of show that real change takes time, especially for an organization with such a strong and established image. All in all though, representation absolutely matters. You know, we talk about this a lot, and the squad is definitely trying, but there's still a way to go, if you ask me. And the documentary doesn't fully dig into like the systemic or cultural barriers that these women face, especially for the women of color. And I do think that was a missed opportunity. So hopefully we do get to see that this time around for season 2. I just want them to be more honest and have more honest conversations about how race shapes the cheerleaders' experiences. Not just, you know, hey, look, we have more diversity now. Now, moving on to point number 4, this is basically where the shiny surface cracks. And honestly, this part frustrated me and everyone watching, and that is the low pay and the wages. If you look at the comment section of Kelli, Finglass, or Judy Trammell, who is their choreographer and has been for just as long as Kelli has been the director, or even Charlotte Jones, who is the daughter of Jerry Jones, who is the owner of the Cowboys, and Charlotte's position is she is the president of the cheerleaders, and I'm sure she does so much more. You'll see that these women have been getting dragged since last year. I do think it is a bit too far, because I don't think Kelli or Judy are to blame, but I do think that ownership, which may be Charlotte and her father and their whole entire family, as this is a family business, should be held accountable for this. And of course, that is how much the cheerleaders are paid. So the docu-series basically exposes how underpaid these women are, and that is despite the fact that the Cowboys organization is worth billions. Not with an M, but with a B, billions, okay? The cheerleaders are doing intense work, okay? So we have hours of practice, traveling, appearances, media, engagements, and getting paid barely above minimum wage. And after doing my research, it says that the cheerleaders are making about $400 to $500 per game, and there is 10 home games a season, so $4,000 to $5,000 per season. And they also do get paid to practice, which we'll get to. Then, of course, appearances, where their wage is dependent on your tenure on the team. So think if you're like a rookie or first year, maybe you make like $100 an hour. And then if you are higher than that, it probably goes up in increments. And don't quote me on the rates. I'm just saying that's basically how it goes. Now, industry standard for NFL cheerleaders, this is definitely the standard, okay? And all of these women know this going into the job. I know a lot of us are championing behind them, but they do sign up for this knowing that it is a part-time position with full-time expectations, unfortunately. One of the alumni cheerleaders named Kat, she also went viral in season 1 for saying that they get paid as much as like a full-time Chick-fil-A worker. We're talking about women who are literally the face of a multi-billion, with a B, dollar sports franchise, putting in serious work, and they don't get paid or technically protected fairly. So again, it's important to remember that neither Kelli nor Judy signed the checks. They're employees of the Cowboys organization, just like the cheerleaders. Like, yes, they're likely paid more due to their seniority and the impact that they've made over the past 3 decades, but I don't think I can blame them for the pay disparities. I don't think that falls on them. Honestly, I can only imagine how hard they had to fight just to earn a livable salary when they first started, especially given how limited and unfair the opportunities for women are in the workplace then and now. Like, even now, despite the progress that we've made towards breaking the glass ceiling, I think that those challenges haven't fully disappeared either. Charlotte, on the other hand, I gotta be real, Charlotte. Yeah, she did say that there is cynicism around payment for cheerleaders in the NFL, but this is 2025. Times have changed. So in season 1, Charlotte makes a statement that goes the most viral out of anything else on the show, which I did like this conversation. And she says, there is a lot of cynicism around pay for NFL cheerleaders, as it should be. They're not paid a lot, but the facts are they actually don't come here for the money. Sit on that. They come here for something that's actually bigger than that to them. It is about being a part of something bigger than themselves. It is about a sisterhood that they are able to form, about relationships that they have for the rest of their life. They have a chance to feel like they are valued, they are special, they are making a difference. When the women come here, they find their passion and they find their purpose. Now, I'm going to dive deep on this because I think that if this was just some startup brand, somewhere in the middle of Texas, with minimal resources or really little to no popularity, I would understand. I would. And I do think part of what Charlotte said is true. The women do come to find their purpose through community service, through dancing. They even do USO tours with the military. They volunteer, they interact with Cowboys fans, et cetera, et cetera. However, we're talking about a multi-billion, with a B, billion-dollar company. So Charlotte's statement, while I think it's likely that she really didn't have any bad intentions, it still is very frustrating and honestly very outdated when you view it in the context of like fair labor practices and modern expectations around equitable compensation. Like, we got to talk money here. Like, to say that they don't come here for the money, that kind of basically reinforces the harmful idea that passion and purpose should replace financial compensation, which is never going to happen, especially for women in entertainment and performance industries. Like, yes, I do agree that the sisterhood, the legacy, the pride in being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders are very undeniably powerful, but these should complement fair pay. Okay, and not be excuse of a lack of it. Cheerleaders are not just simply volunteers. They're not just doing this for a hobby. These ladies are trained performers. They're ambassadors of the NFL's most valuable sports franchise, right? And they definitely are a core part of the Dallas Cowboys branding machine, if we're being real. Like, I see the cheerleaders before I ever see the players. I'm an Eagles fan, but I love the DCC. The ladies definitely put in rigorous hours. They definitely face public scrutiny. I mean, they've gotten a lot of praise and backlash just from this show. And they also maintain a high standard of physical and professional excellence. I mean, these women are athletes, for crying out loud. This kind of labor deserves proper compensation in any industry, especially in one as lucrative and professional as football. And while Charlotte frames the experience as, one of like self-discovery and sisterhood, it is true. Okay. But I think that narrative has often been used to kind of like gloss over the systemic issues around gendered labor, like things dealing with women and working. Cheerleaders historically have been underpaid, right? And undervalued, just people in entertainment. And in 2025, there's no reason why that should still be a case for a multi-billion-dollar organization. In fact, okay, former DCC Erica Wilkins brought this very issue into the spotlight when she sued the Cowboys in 2018 over lost wages and unfair pay. And I think her legal action was definitely a turning point. It definitely showed the contrast between the expectations placed on the cheerleaders and the minimal compensation that they actually actually receive. And I think what is most powerful is that she didn't even want any money from this. She didn't walk away with a dime. She said, I do not want any money. I just want to make a change. And I see that Erica was kind of like blacklisted from the DCC lineage or the legacy after she did this. But her lawsuit is the reason why they even make, $4,000 per season or whatever. It used to be $200 a game. And then it was like $7.25 an hour for practice. The ladies do get paid to practice. I think it's maybe about $12 to $15 now for practices. So I think her courage definitely led to the increased wages and basically the reevaluation of how the DCC are compensated. And that kind of proves that the progress only came when someone had to hold the organization accountable for being real. If the Cowboys truly value the DCC and the legacy that they uphold, that respect should be reflected not only in the emotional narratives, but also in livable wages, long-term career support, benefits, health insurance, and expanded employment opportunities, especially in 2025. Like, there's conversations in 2025 that are like around gender equity and workplace value for women. Like, all of this stuff is more visible than ever. Passion and purpose are definitely very important, but they should never be used to justify exploitation either. I just gotta keep it real. These girls are jump splitting, and we even saw an alumni named Caroline who was a phenomenal cheerleader, right? She was the point of their triangles, which is one of the main formations in their signature Thunderstruck dance. And she was captain or group leader, right? And she was really a standout cheerleader. And Caroline said that she felt her right hip withering down her 4th season. And she really wanted to cheer for 5 seasons, which, all power to you, girl. I don't know if I would have pushed through a hip pain, but she literally had to get a hip operation after her 5th year at only 25 years old. And that was like 2 years ago. So Caroline is probably 27, which is my age. So we're about the same age. And when I had to think about that, I'm like, it's wild to think that she's already undergone a hip surgery. That is something that you do not expect at this stage in life, especially not for something like the jump splits. And I think there has been a lot of debate on whether or not they should keep doing them. I think they should, but I think they should only do it on certain surfaces, and I don't think they should do it all the time. These are high impact, high risk moves that are performed regularly, all in the name of, delivering a very elite performance that we like to see. And yes, the jump splits are very cool. Like, every single time I see them, I gasp, okay? And honestly, when I saw them in person, I was like, whoa. But when you hear the stories like this, it really forces you to think about the bigger picture. Yes, being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader comes with once in a lifetime experiences, obviously, right? The camaraderie, the sisterhood, the lifelong memories. And I do think all of that is very meaningful, but I also have to ask, at what cost, right? When women are literally sacrificing their bodies, sometimes permanently. There was one lady that said she had like 12 hip surgeries at this point. How do we reconcile that with the fact that they are still not being paid what they deserve? It's honestly mind-blowing that in 2025, a cheerleader for one of the most profitable sports franchises in the world, if not the most profitable sports franchise in the world, could basically endure this level of physical strain and still be underpaid. Passion is very powerful and purpose is beautiful, but passion does not pay for physical therapy, okay? And purpose doesn't cover surgery bills or long-term health issues at all. These women are athletes, they are performers, they are ambassadors, like I said, and they definitely deserve to be treated and paid as such. So I hope for season 2, they push harder on this issue and things have changed for the ladies. Now, my 5th and final point as we wrap up is basically talking about the personal and emotional impact of this job. And I do think it's very, very complex. And the documentary shares stories about physical injuries, some very serious, like I said, mental health struggles, and also the constant anxiety of performing perfectly season after season, and just these girls' real lives. It also shows the bright side. It also shows the community, the friendships, the sense of empowerment these women feel when they're a part of this iconic squad. In another life, I would have been a DCC. If I would have taken cheer and dance seriously after high school, I would have loved to be a DCC, right? But I think woman to woman and peer to peer, I know that it's very complex to be a DCC, even without being one, right? So one of the stories focused was on Victoria Kalina. She was a 4th year in the show, and Victoria really, really struggled. It was really clear that Victoria was suffering from, most likely, allegedly, an eating disorder. And she talked a lot about mental health. She talked about this binge purge cycle that she was on. And even outside of her job as a DCC, it just seemed like Victoria was struggling. I think with her mom, Tina, who was also featured, being an alumni, making Victoria a legacy, that pressure really got to her. She was called out for her weight during her first attempt at making the team back in 2018 when she was only 19 years old. And although I thought Victoria looked great, I think all the ladies look great, their bodies are better than mine, there was a difference between 2018-2019 Victoria versus the Victoria that we saw in the documentary. Something definitely changed. I think outside of DCC, Victoria definitely suffered. And I'm very empathetic towards that, but I do think that nepotism and her relationship with Kelli actually hurt her at times, because Kelli and Tina, which is Victoria's mom, they cheered together, they were best friends, they basically all grew up together. So I think that definitely hurt Victoria at times, and that may have caused some of the other girls to maybe withdraw from her. I think that's what they were getting at without saying it. Maybe the other girls felt they couldn't trust her, maybe they were opposed to nepotism, or maybe Victoria just didn't mesh well with the group. So she chose to retire after her 4th year, and she really wanted to go for a 5th year, which is not necessarily the maximum, but most of the girls pretty much hang it up by the 5th year. And Victoria's mental struggle mixed in with feeling, underappreciated by Kelli and Judy, and feeling like she always had to prove herself to them and not really meshing with the women, it basically caused her to just bow out. Now, I did agree with her choice. I don't think anyone should stay anywhere that makes them mentally anguished, but I do feel like initially things were going well for Victoria and she was benefiting from her relationships with the coaches until some type of mental or behavioral things took over. Now, another story that I did want to point out was one of the most moving examples of strength in the entire docu-series, which was Kelsey. Kelsey W was a 5th-year veteran and also team captain, which they call group leaders. Kelsey embodied resilience in every single sense of the word. I mean, man, she was juggling a demanding career as a nurse and she was caring for a very sick child, and she still managed to show up for the team as well as be a leader, a performer, and a role model. And throughout the season, you could see the exhaustion on Kelsey's face and body, but it never diminished her commitment. And it's easy to glorify like the sparkle of the DCC uniform, but Kelsey's story definitely reminded people that many of these women have full lives outside of their roles on the team, and they're still giving 110%. Being a DCC is not just physically demanding from what I see, it's also emotionally and mentally taxing, and yet Kelsey pushed through every single rehearsal, every game, and every appearance. To me, she didn't just meet the standard, she definitely set the standard. What struck me the most was how even in her moments of fatigue and tiredness, she definitely still remained like very composed, very encouraging, and a very dependable teammate. I mean, like nobody had anything bad to say about Kelsey at all. Her story added like a real depth to the show because it reflected on the often invisible sacrifices women make to pursue their dreams, hand in hand with their dream careers outside of DCC. So if anyone represents the complex of balance and passion and purpose and perseverance that defines the DCC, that is definitely Kelsey. Now, lastly, what is even more interesting too is that the rookie breakout star of the show, who is Reese Allman, basically had the opposite experience of Victoria and maybe Kelsey too. Reese is from Jacksonville, Florida. She had just graduated from the University of Alabama, and she is very talented. I loved her solo. Her solo costume was great. She was also deeply rooted in her Christian faith, which I'm a Catholic, so I think this is okay. But I do think that for audiences who just wanted to follow the story of the DCC, the faith aspect was a bit overkill for a lot of people. Like the God Loves Dallas thing was so interesting to me. I've never been to a mega church at all. But yeah, it's Texas. Everything's bigger there. They're definitely the Bible Belt, so I get it. And, now I live in the South, I live in Atlanta, so I do get it. I still don't advise anyone to make Christianity their whole personality, but I still think faith is very important. And sometimes many of the women probably just fall on it or prioritize their faith due to such a rigorous job. I know that I would be praying extra hard every night if I was them. But Reese was definitely celebrated this season. She made the team, she got married, she was featured a lot, she still is, and she seems like this very sweet girl, like the sweetest girl. And it seems like her projected time with the DCC does have like a positive outlook. I'm not sure if she's gonna go for like the whole 5 years or more, but I think if she does, she'll definitely make captain or group leader, or maybe be their Pro Bowl representative cheerleader, and also have like a lot of opportunities to be one of the faces of the DCC. I definitely can see it. She has this perfect situation set up for her. I do think her time with the DCC is going to be more of like this, fairy tale Disney princess princess storyline for her in comparison to some of the others. So it's very interesting to see how different all of their experiences are. And I think that is what made the show very engaging, because the experience for one may be easier or more welcoming and celebrated, while the experience for another may be like detrimental to them. So I think this does highlight how complex the DCC experience is. It's not just about victimization, but also glamorization. It's definitely both. As a woman, like a working woman, a woman who is going for their dream, a woman that is performing, they're mothering, they're leading, they're trying to be wives and girlfriends and sisters and whatever, right? We see that in the complexity of the DCC and their history and their brand and the women who have worn the uniform. These women are very, very strong. They're very talented, and I think they're very resilient for what they do. They love what they do, they're praised and they're celebrated for it, but they are also working in a system that basically demands perfection, sexual appeal, and emotional labor on all fronts. And I think that is really what the heart of the story is. Just to close off this video, in conclusion, I just want to give my final thoughts and my takeaway. I think America's Sweethearts is a very, very, very well-made, fascinating docu-series that shines a light on a unique American institution. Like I said, I have followed the Making the Team show since I was a very little girl, but their Netflix show really opened my eyes to like the business, the branding, and most importantly, the women and their individual backgrounds. This new show gives these women a platform to share their stories in their own voices, which I love, but it also exposes the cracks too, you know, around race and around pay, sexualization, and the cost of being America's glamorized sweetheart, right? But I appreciate the documentary's honesty, and I think they can go more, and I hope to see the conversations pushed a little bit further, especially when it comes to like the systemic change in some of the things that make up the DCC organization as a whole. This first season was 7 episodes. I pray that they have more episodes in season 2. Okay, let's make it like 10 to 12. And again, if y'all want a deep dive on season 2, definitely let me know. I will watch it and do it. But what do y'all think? What did you think when you watched it? Did this change how you see the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders? And overall, did you take anything away from how women in this industry, but all industries, experience with their lives as working everyday women? So that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please let me know your commentary on my commentary down below. What do you think? What do you know? Let me know. If y'all haven't already, definitely support me on my journey to becoming Miss Diaspora Nigeria USA 2025. Y'all know my pageant I've been preparing for. I will be competing in August, and you can vote between now and then, okay? There's no timeline, so if you didn't get paid this week, try again next week, just saying. But yes, definitely support my journey. Your contribution goes towards my journey, my upkeep, everything, as well as making a donation to end hunger in Nigeria. So thank you guys in advance. And last but not least, don't forget to follow me on all of my social media networks, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye, y'all.
Through my pill, mademoiselle, I'm more into caramel. You got my mind spinning like a carousel. Can you tell? Ooh, you so professional, smooth like a criminal. Passenger princess, always treat me like Cinderella. Yeah, call me Bella, say I look Stella. Tu me fais bêta, ils sont jealous. Démon, père from my left hand. J'ai regardé, je ne vois pas no other man. Number one, Papa, you know you my only one. 2 times 2, buy me everything under the sun. Toi, c'est moi, bisous on my body, love that. Yeah, we had tough times, can we rise above that? Your smile's my weakness, your body give me releases. It do my day be increasing, it then you bless me like sneezes. I could write a whole thesis when I give you these reasons. Count on, 2, 3, come on baby, come